So knowing that it is 7:01 p.m. on February 7th, 2024, I'll call the Board of Health meeting to order. We have one variance hearing, number of items on the agenda. And before we get started, though, since it's a virtual meeting, we can just go around and announce. Board members can go around and announce that they're present. So Daryl Beardsley present.
Matt Beavers present.
Julie Dreyfus present.
Diana Hook present.
And Rebecca's caught up at work and is going to join us as soon as possible. So we haven't had any items to add to the agenda that I'm aware of. Is anyone aware of an emergency that's come up in the last 48 hours? So if not, no. Matt, if I could turn the meeting over to you.
All right, sounds good.
Oh, and I will note one thing. Dan McIntyre has something he needs to go to at the completion of the variance hearing, but he is also here for 58 Mill, and okay. Jacob Strauss was the first person and guest in the meeting. So if we could do that early on so that Dan can make his later appointment.
Sounds good. Why don't we do that now then?
Okay.
That sounds fine. So I think hopefully everyone's seeing the screen okay. I'm having Zoom is looking weird on my end, but probably something updated and I didn't realize it. So Mark is not able to attend tonight, and so he left comments. And so this is a replacement for a septic at 58 Mill. Mark has reviewed it and recommends approval, conditional to a deed recording for a garbage grinder. I think those were his only real comments there.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's pull up the documents on 58 Mill. So it was a room count question.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like we have identified, I assume, Mr. Strauss, is this your numbering?
That would be my numbering I put on there.
Your numbering, okay.
Right. So this particular septic system wasn't in failure, but there was a discrepancy between the design flow for the current system and the room count. The previous owner took some liberties with a building permit that was taken out for the third floor and ended up with more bedrooms than was allowed. So the current owner is trying to rectify that discrepancy.
All right.
Which I have to say is much appreciated.
Yes,
So
definitely.
that's fantastic.
And so it looks like what we have here are we're counting 5 rooms on the first floor.
Mm-hmm.
Is the sunroom, I assume, is like a fully conditioned heated sunroom?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So 5 on the first floor and another 4 on the second floor brings us to 9. And then these 2 finished spaces on the third floor to 11. And then 1 finished room in the basement is 12. And so that puts us at 6 rooms on the second floor above and 12 rooms total. So that's a 6-bedroom system. Presumably that is what you have designed for us, Dan?
That's correct. We were able to design for 6 bedrooms, and it's fully compliant with the Title V and the Sherborn regulation.
Okay. All right. And so the only issue is the garbage grinder deed restriction. Any questions from the board about any of this?
No, looks good to me.
Yeah.
Okay. And so
just one more point. The owner is going to be pulling a building permit for a porch that's going to be added onto the back. So I just wanted to let you know that you'll be seeing that from the building inspector at some point, if you haven't already. But it doesn't add to the room count. It's an unheated screen porch,
Mm-hmm.
but it does require a building permit.
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Okay, yeah, so I think it was labeled screened porch, so it seemed pretty clear. But we'll try to remember to remind Mark, although I assume you already have reminded him.
Yep,
Okay.
that's this and the screen porch here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so do I have a motion to approve the replacement septic plan conditional to a garbage grinder deed recording?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Matt Beaver's aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye.
All right, thank you much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we've got a little time before we need Dan again for 7:30. I did see, who else is here? I see Mr. Berkowitz is here. Okay. All right, so let's tackle that one. So this is the deed recording for 13 Corsebrook. And so as I'm sure everyone recalls, this has sort of gone back and forth around the language around the fencing and the potential livestock over the Elgin system that's been installed there. And so the board provided this deed recording, and the language in here basically pulls directly from the design and installation manual, which uses the phrase, and I'm trying to make sure I'm looking at the right thing here.
Yeah, you were very close a moment ago.
I got vehicular systems. Oh, here we go. If the system is to be installed in livestock areas, the system must be fenced off around the perimeter, prevent compaction, cover material, and damage. And so the board has decided to use the phrase livestock because that is the phrase from the manufacturer's system here. The board has also chosen to use fencing. I know there was a question about whether this should be electric fencing. Ultimately, it is the board's responsibility to enforce this, and we don't require electric fencing, so we're not going to put electric fencing in there. And so this is the deed recording that the board has agreed upon, and it's the deed recording that needs to be filed for the system to be in compliance. Anyone on the board have further comment on that?
Mass DEP has been clear that it is something that the board, as you said, would be responsible for in the future, and the board needs to accept the language of deed recordings. And this is what we would want to enforce, because we've had this discussion that the fencing wouldn't be required without livestock. But if, and the current owners do not have livestock, but if a future owner came on and there was a requirement for electric fencing and they didn't want that, we'd just be spending time to then create another deed recording to amend it, which is just an effort that is not needed for this. It just needs to be effective fencing to keep livestock off of the system. And how that occurs is really up to the property owner for the most part, as long as it works. And I think there was an issue about concern of what constitutes livestock. And it doesn't matter if we put in heavy livestock or livestock. There may be questions, and we will address that when the issue comes up.
And so therefore, I think we want to stick with what is in the manufacturer's instructions, which is just the phrase livestock.
Yes.
Because neither of those is sort of specifically defined in any state law anywhere that I'm aware of.
Right. So
it's gonna still be subject to interpretation.
Right. This is the cleanest approach, is to stick with what their language is as the experts about their own system. And this has gone through Mass DEP approval also.
Yeah. And so, Mr. Berkowitz, any questions about this at this point?
I guess my first question, Matt, is why did we, in our series of multiple meetings with you, with the board, decide that it was to be electric fencing?
I don't recall deciding that. Ultimately, the deed restriction is what is the decision of the board, and this is the deed restriction.
Okay, as I was finishing up, it's in your minutes, okay, where Mark brought up the fact that electric fencing is allowed, proper fencing. He had talked with one of his friends who has a farm. I remember it very clearly. Okay, and that was obviously forgotten when we went here. So I'm just curious, why are we changing the language? And then also in the various, let me just look here, in September 27th email, we were told and informed by the Board of Health no heavy livestock is allowed in the septic system leaching area. We put that sign up in the barn. Mark came out, he photographed it. I'm sure he provided it to you on the board. And
Yeah,
now
we've
that's
discussed
changed.
this at like 5 meetings now. So in the end, this is the language that we came up for it has nothing to do with the sign. This is the language that we produced for the deed recording. This is the language the board is requiring for deed recording. And so the
Well,
options at this point are to file
required us
this.
to have a sign. You required us to put a sign up, which would supersede a deed restriction.
No,
we would like
we
to
didn't-
put a deed restriction, Matt.
No, we did not do that. You have an Elgin, so you have to have a deed restriction. This is the deed restriction the board is providing. It is the board's responsibility to enforce deed restrictions. This is the deed restriction we require you to file. Your choices are to file this. If you don't file this, you're not in compliance. If you have another concern, then you can have your lawyer take it up in land court, but like it's not going further than this from the board. This is what the board is requiring. This is the language we've decided upon. And so this is what needs to be filed.
So back to the fencing issue, Matt. Okay, and I just heard Daryl talk about effective fencing would be acceptable. Okay, is that language? I just don't want any. I shouldn't have to be able to forced to put a fencing up there that is unnecessary fencing. Okay.
And that's what this
Again.
deed recording is going to change. The difference was when we started this, you indicated that you had or were going to have horses and that you wanted electric fencing. And so you had prepared a deed recording, and at that time, that was acceptable to us because you were planning to do it. But now that you don't have livestock, and this is a deed that's we didn't want to restrict you to having to put up electric fencing when you don't have livestock if you didn't want to put the electric fencing in. And we chose to then adjust that wording so that it would be more flexible for the future when we have to enforce it for other people, potentially other homeowners. So the electric fencing was something that you initially wanted.
It's very effective. We've used it in the past, and your own.
Yes, no one
And that's
disagrees, and that
fine.
would be allowed here, but we're not going to put the word electric in the deed restriction, and we're not going to put the word heavy in the deed restriction. So this is the deed restriction that we are currently requiring.
I just don't understand why you go back on your own word, Matt. Okay, it says right here, the sign shall say no heavy livestock is allowed.
That
okay?
was not
I mean,
the deed
I
recording.
see
This is
your body
Mr.
language is not very attractive.
Mr. Berkowitz.
Yes.
It is the responsibility of the board to provide the deed restriction. This is the deed restriction the board is currently requiring. Your options are to file this or to take us to court. Like, we're not going to change our mind at this point. Okay, so like that's sort of where we are. We keep saying the same thing over and over again in a meeting. This is the deed
No, you
restriction.
say
the board
different
is
things every
currently
meeting.
requiring.
Okay, you've said different things every meeting. You don't say the same thing over and over. Okay, you've changed the language
We
3
have
times.
changed the deed restriction. The deed restriction currently in effect says you have to have an electric fence up. Do you have an electric fence installed right now?
I don't have an electric fence up now. No,
Then you're currently in violation of your existing deed
I
restriction.
don't have any animals here.
Exactly. That's why we're making this deed restriction, because the one that's currently in there doesn't describe the conditions. And so, like, we've explained this 3 times in 3 meetings that we needed to change the deed restriction. This is the changed deed restriction. This is the one we want. So that's where we're at.
That's the one you want, but it's different than the ones you talked about before and we agreed upon before. Okay, so you want it today, but not before. It's just
We
it's
agreed
just
on it because you
not
said
consistent.
you had animals you were planning to have there. We were not looking ahead at that time. We were meeting the requirements that for the circumstances that you were planning. That changed. It caused us to look at it and say, okay, we need to make this more flexible for changing circumstances that changed before we got even a year into this. So this is, we feel, a much better deed recording because it gives the opportunity. Otherwise, you'd be out of compliance if you don't file this kind of deed recording that says unless and until there are livestock on the property, you don't need fencing without livestock, but you do need fencing with livestock. And it's
So
not as
which
restricted
is
on the
what this
type
deed
of.
restriction says. And so I think we've been pretty clear that we're not going to change the language on this. And so you can continue to say that what we said before and what we said before, but this is the final deed restriction that we have provided you, and this is the one that we want. And so again, you file it or you're not in compliance. And if you're not in compliance, then we have to take action to remedy that. And so we're trying to give you a chance to just get this filed before we have to say your system is out of compliance.
Well, we have a conditional compliance right now. Okay, we installed the system with our money, not yours, on our property, not yours. Okay, this whole thing came up because we have a neighbor. Okay, who dragged
Mr.
himself
Berkowitz,
around.
we have discussed your neighbor ad nauseum in the past.
Well,
We
no,
don't need to
that-
discuss
that's-
that. We don't need to discuss that anymore.
They
This
made
is
us
a
all
currently
know.
required deed recording. Your system
heard
is
you-
not
I
in
heard you- I
compliance.
heard you the
We
first
can
4 times.
issue an order that you immediately bring it into compliance by filing this deed recording. And if you don't, we can place a lien. Like, those are our options. So what we're asking you to do is just file this. I do not want to rehash the whole story again.
Neither do I. I just want to get it the way we had agreed upon, which was, to say electric fencing and to say no heavy livestock. Because if I have a couple of sheep out there, okay, they're certainly not going to damage. We had a 37,000. Mayo had a 37,000 pound excavator on there spreading the loom. Okay, you'd think that would be inappropriate.
Once again, we are not going to go back and
Once
discuss
again.
what is and is not allowed by the manufacturer. We have been over this a million times. Is anyone on the board inclined to change the deed restriction? Or are we happy with this as a board?
I'm happy with this as a board.
Yes.
Okay. So,
As is town council, who has reviewed this thoroughly.
so that's where we're at. So it's not going to change and you can file it.
DP is also feels that this is appropriate.
I couldn't hear you, so I'm sorry, Daryl.
This has been reviewed by us, by the town council, and by Mass DEP, and we're all in agreement that this is the appropriate deed restriction. So we
Thank you so
would
much.
like it to be filed.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks. Oh, sorry. Hang on. All right. Let's see. We've got 12 more minutes. We can keep working our way through the agent's business. So for 110, 112 North Main, we got an update from Mark. I don't know if the homeowner is here for that one.
Oh, I'm checking Matt to see if
Okay.
if he's
Yeah,
here.
I didn't.
So my
Mhm.
understanding is that from the latest updates that they've contracted with an engineer, and Mark is requesting that they apply for soil testing by March 15th to have the system submitted and installed by August 1st, which I think is a reasonable next course of action.
Mhm.
I think we're going to need to, I believe Mark, I saw some emails with Mark to the homeowner, which communicated as much. I think we probably just need to keep following up on this on meetings to make sure it moves forward.
Yes, the only thing, I'm not sure who James's iPad is, but if that happens to be James Mautern, then I don't know if he's perhaps stepped away a moment, or it's not the same James. So,
Not the same James.
okay. Mystery solved, thank you.
All right. Okay. So I think that's just a follow-up item for the next agenda. And the homeowner did indicate that they were going to move forward. So hopefully that continues to proceed.
And as you said, Mark specified some appropriate timelines, certainly to get the testing done at the appropriate time of year. So to get things rolling by March 15th is the target, and to have the full system in by August 1st.
Yep. All right. I think the next item on agent's business is 11 South Main. I know I wasn't at the last meeting, but I know you all had a decent amount of discussion about the proposed med spot 11 South Main, and then they provided some additional information on flow requirements.
Mhm.
And it looks like
I
Mark's
could give
up.
a summary if you like,
Sure, that would be great since I wasn't
just
there.
of the numbers.
I looked at-
So, yeah, the system is old, so this is a good reason to be cautious. It's a 40-year-old system. It was, its design capacity was 485 gallons per day. And right now there have been, there's meter readings for the establishment that's on the, I don't know whether to call it, it's a little funny, whether it's the second floor, it's the first floor viewing it from the street. But then, of course, the property drops off to the back. So anyway, that's currently been measured at about 25 gallons a day. And then there's a personal trainer in there, and that's been estimated at about 96 gallons a day based on meter readings. And the data to predict what the spa will be using, they found some records for a comparable spa. I think it's owned by the same company, also Med Spa, in another location, and it's a slightly larger establishment in that other location. And so they had meter reading information on that, and it was 1,140 something 5 maybe cubic feet per year. That comes out to approximately, very approximately 25 gallons a day. So then at 365 days a year, you have about 327 gallons. I am rounding on some of these, but in any case, so if we take 327 plus, let's call it, instead of 96 gallons, 100, we're up to 427, and double the amount coming from the upstairs retail, food and beverage retail, from 25 to 50, we come up to 477 gallons, which is still below the 485 limit. Mark is recommending, though, that they continue, when they move in, that they have actual meter readings just to track exactly what the flow is, to determine if there are any issues. And they are not planning to do the tattooing like activity. So they will have basically dry processes, so to speak, there. So their system, oh, and excuse me, so when they took the other facilities that they used to benchmark against, one was higher than, of course, there are different amounts, but they added together those figures, averaged them, and then multiplied by 200%. And that's what came up with the, really, with the 327 hours a day approximately. So both meter readings and then an averaging of things.
So it
And
sounds
then
like
a safety
overall,
factor. Yeah.
overall able to collect more data, hopefully more representative of their use, and then we've even building in some, additional allowance for fluctuations. We can meet the requirements.
Yes, and then the ongoing monitoring will be to verify all that information and determine whether some other action is needed in the future.
Okay. That all makes sense. So I guess the question is there anything for us to approve right now?
I don't know, Ellen, where all the other paperwork might stand at the moment. Or are they ready for?
Yeah, I think it would be they would go to the building application. They would need the Board of Health to approve, that there is enough design flow for the med spa to move in there to operate.
Mm-hmm.
And then they can, go forward with their building application.
So I guess, do we need to vote to say that, or do we just need to communicate that to them, and then they'll put in the building application, and then we will know to approve it when that comes through?
Well, since it's been discussed several times, maybe voting to approve that now would be helpful.
Okay.
Or should we vote to, should we authorize Mark to approve it when the application's received?
Yeah, you can do that, but with the condition, that he recommended the Title V inspection within 6 months and the water meter readings for the next, monthly be provided to our office monthly.
Okay. So then the motion I guess I would propose is that we move to authorize Mark to approve the building application for the Med Spot 11 South Main Street, conditional to them agreeing to provide monthly water meter readings and completing a Title V inspection 6 months after they open.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any more discussion?
No.
Okay. Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Becca Honeywell, aye. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yeah.
can.
Yes.
Awesome. Great. Thanks.
And Darrell Beardsley, aye.
Okay. All right. So I think that concludes agent's business. I think none of the chair's business is doable in 3 minutes.
I would say one is
Okay.
Greenwood Homes. The
Okay.
hearing has been closed.
Okay. Well, then there we go. So Greenwood Homes. the
No
hearing is
further
closed.
discussions on that.
So no further discussion for us to have at this.
Matt,
Yeah.
I would love to have a brief discussion about Greenwood Homes, if that's all right.
Then let's wait and do it later.
Okay, that's fine. It won't be long, but I do want to ask the board a couple of questions relative to Greenwood Homes.
Then let's wait and do it after the variance hearing.
Awesome. Thank you. Absolutely.
Then. All right. Can we approve some minutes in the meantime?
Yes.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. I think I had some minor. I was not at the meeting. Which meetings was I not at? I was not at the one on the 16th or the 17th, I believe. I had some minor edits on the others. Anyone else?
And I've submitted again minor edits.
I did too.
I also had minor edits.
Okay.
Same thing.
So do you want to vote on each of them separately?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I will, just because at least I wasn't at some of them.
Yeah.
So do I have a motion to approve the minutes for December 20th, 2023?
So moved.
Seconded.
All right. If no discussion, Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
And is that, this one is conditional to the minor edits, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Darrell Beardsley, aye.
All right. So do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the January 3rd, 2024 meeting with minor edits as suggested?
So moved. Seconded.
No further discussion. Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Darrell Beardsley, aye.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve the 116 meeting that was joint with the ZBA, conditional to any minor edits that are received, or incorporating any minor edits that are received?
So moved.
Seconded.
If no discussion, I will abstain.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Darrell Beardsley, aye.
And then quickly, for the 1/17/2024 Board of Health meeting, do I have a motion to approve those with any minor edits that were suggested?
So moved.
Seconded.
If no further discussion, I will once again abstain.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Darrell Beardsley, aye.
All right, great. So let's move on then, as it's now 7:31 to the variance hearing for 91 Bogastow Brook Road. Ellen, do we have the green cards?
Yes, they've all been received. Everything's in order.
Great. All right, so then we can go ahead and open the hearing. And then this is Dan again, right?
Yes.
All right, you want to just walk us through it?
Sure. For the record, Dan McIntyre representing the homeowners, Paula and Chris Curran. They are in the process of selling their home at 91 Bogastow and failed the Title V inspection. We were retained to design a new septic system, which we did do. The original house was constructed in the mid-1980s with a 4-bedroom septic system on record in the Board of Health. We looked at the house, and the assessors have it down as a 10-room house. We looked at it, and it's potentially 11 rooms. So we did design the septic system for a 5-bedroom house, so it's fully compliant with Title V.
Mhm.
We are asking for the +1 bedroom and a waiver to the Sherborn regulations with respect to groundwater. Seasonal high groundwater was determined to be at 4 feet below grade, which doesn't quite make the 5-foot rule in Sherborn. So we're asking for that variance from the Sherborn regulations for a 5-bedroom septic system. And I think we wanted to have the board's opinion on the room count as well, to make sure that everyone's happy with our count of that. So we provided a floor plans and some photographs of the various rooms, so you could take a look at that. But if there's any questions on the septic system, feel free to ask.
Yeah, the septic seemed pretty straightforward. It's just the groundwater variance.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think it was a room count was the question, and I think we saw the assessor's records had it as a 4, and so something changed over time. And so let's just walk through here. And we can look at the photos later as we need to. So I count 1 in the basement, assuming this room is finished. And then sort of 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So with the basement and the first floor. So assuming family living, dining are separate, and then kitchen and 4 season, I counted as 2 rooms. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the first floor, 1 in the basement. Second floor is 4 bedrooms here. And so that puts us at, I'm already losing track, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10. And so then the question really is, what's this 3rd floor space? And so as I understand it from looking at this in the pictures, there's this what's labeled loft on the left that is essentially open to that bedroom below and accessible via that bedroom below. It looks like also accessible from this other loft area, but there's no like separate private space there. And so I'm inclined to count sort of this bedroom and the loft over it as 1 room.
Yes,
That's the way we interpret it as well.
there's another set of drawings called the real estate floor
Yeah.
The real
plan.
estate agent put together another set, yes.
Is that
Here they
more
are.
Because I found that
There it is.
to make it easier to understand, the relationship there of that loft, because you can see the stairs, that go up from the room below.
Yeah, so this right, the 10
connect.
by 13 bedroom on the second floor then has a ladder up into the loft up above. And so I was calling that 1 room.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, at first I was a little concerned about, because we haven't had quite this before, where there were 2 doorways into a suite of rooms. So we've often had, if you had 1 entry into 2 rooms, so you had to pass through 1 room to get to the other room, that we would still call that 1 bedroom. However, the pictures I found very illuminating on this, because where I could see indication of a window in the loft, it's a skylight. And then the other window, it's not quite accurate on this plan. According to the pictures, you can see a window here right at the left of the stairs. That's not a good egress, and you do need 2 egresses from a bedroom. So for that upper area, that's not an egress, nor is the skylight. So it couldn't be a separate room, I think, per regulations for bedrooms. So this was helpful for me. Otherwise, it made it a little questionable as to whether that upper level door was inappropriate. But I don't see it that way
Yeah.
based on this.
Yeah, it is a little odd because we usually don't have two entrances, but we've also sort of generally said there's not a separate private space there.
Right.
And so I think that's consistent with one room, and then I'll pull up the floor plan again. And so then even if we call the other loft, then becomes the 11th room.
Mhm.
Mhm. Right.
And so we're fine with a 5-bedroom system then.
Yes.
One other
Can I
comment
make a
though,
comment?
Oh.
the storage room in the basement
Mhm.
is unheated and has no windows. It does have
This
a
room here?
finished floor and finished walls, but it is unheated.
Let me just.
Although I wonder if it's sort of conditioned just by virtue of being.
Yeah, it's this space here with exposed ductwork and low ceilings, and it's got.
You're right. It has all the HV ductwork running through it.
Hmm.
Can I please make a comment? I'm sorry, I can't raise my hand.
Sure.
So it was very typical in old times to have bedrooms where you go through one to the other. We have a 300-year-old house, and our children had to go through each other's bedrooms. We had 2 bedrooms like this, where you went through one to get to the other, and it was 2 bedrooms. So I don't know.
Is your septic system sized for that bedroom size, Rebecca?
Yes, it is. But this is having increased flow design than the original. So I don't know where this falls, because the law that we're following when we allow variances for failures, we're typically not increasing the design flow. We're just allowing them to have a house.
No, we do allow for a +1 when people upgrade. Assuming they don't need local waivers.
They don't need Title V variances, yeah.
Yeah, if they don't need variances from Title V, they just need local waivers, they're allowed a +1. That's what we've always done.
Well, it's what we've done recently. And it's definitely true, unfortunately, that the groundwater table is the problem with dealing with septic material. I mean, that's the whole problem with private water supplies and well water and septic systems right nearby, is that when you have high water table, I mean, that's when you get into trouble. And so I'm just bringing it up for discussion because it is part of the problem.
Okay. So you would recommend not approving this then, despite all of our precedent and the fact that
Well,
has no Title V waivers?
No, I'm just bringing it up because I think that we should think about it. I agree that we set a precedent, but I also think we should think about it overall, because we don't want to end up shooting ourselves in the foot in the end.
In the end, what we have here is a failed system that the owner is voluntarily upgrading to match the existing condition, which I think
I
be
agree.
commendable.
No, I agree. I think that's great, and I appreciate that.
Okay.
So Rebecca, we have
It's
discussed.
just we also have this other issue. We should think about something.
That's
the big picture.
All right, then for everybody else, we, especially the new members on the board, we have discussed this issue in the past. We are looking, part of the decision is that although, yes, historic homes would have a whole string of bedrooms that people would pass through. People shared bedrooms in a very different way in the past, many more people per bedroom. We have looked at it as how bedrooms are defined now, and that is some expectation of greater privacy. As that's one of the criteria in housing code as well, is that privacy is afforded. So I think the photo that was just up showing the portion of the room down below and then a portion of the room above, which is really quite open to one another, it just doesn't look like what we consider a modern day bedroom. Now, in the future, maybe housing will be used differently, especially with the housing crunch that's on. So, and that may be an issue that gets revisited again if customs of use of homes changes. But I don't think it matches for now. And actually, I would say within the last year, I believe we had another house in town. I think it was a new build that had something very similar where there was a bedroom down below and a staircase leading to a loft associated with that bedroom, and we counted it as one bedroom for that project.
I will also say my own home has that exact situation, and as some of the prior board members may remember, I used to be in that office, but I've been relegated to the basement. So I can't do my usual turn off my back room and demonstrate that this is a thing that happens. All right, so good news is I can let the Board of Health meetings can go even later now because no one needs to sleep in this space. All right, so I think we're okay with the room counts overall. And so we have these two variances. Were there any questions from the board about the plans before or about any?
I think Dan was raising the question about the basement room.
Oh, right.
So
Right.
it seems like it's not something we have to decide on now, but is the homeowner looking for some kind of evaluation on that? Even though the system is sized, and can accommodate this.
I don't think it matters to the homeowner. The real
Oh.
estate agent is selling it as storage room, but because she can't sell it as a valid room because it has no heat. So I just
Mhm.
want to bring that to your attention.
Okay.
Just in case, the third floor loft became a room, we would argue that this was not a room.
Oh,
But
I
I
see.
think, yeah,
I think we're good the way it is.
I think in the end we're good with the third floor loft, and I think that this being counted as a room means if they want to come and add heat, they would still be okay.
Okay.
And duct, it seems they'd have to duct.
Mhm. Right.
All right. Other questions? Okay. Should we go through the variances? So it's the two that Dan pointed out. And so I guess I will ask if I can have a motion to grant a variance to section 8.01 groundwater offset to be 5 feet, 4 feet provided per Title V for the reasons described here.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion?
Oh, you know what? Before we vote on this, though, are there any
Oh, are there any
abutters who
abutters?
would
Right,
like
I
to
forgot.
weigh in?
We haven't had a variance hearing in so long. Are there any abutters who have questions or comments before we move on? Not hearing anything.
Not seeing
Okay.
any.
So I think I had a motion, but not a second.
Seconded.
Okay. Any further discussion at this point? Hearing none, Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye.
All right, and then do I have a motion to grant a waiver or a variance for section 8.0 subsection 2, depth of seasonal ground, high groundwater less than 5 feet, which is a naturally occurring condition?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, abstain.
Daryl Beardsley, aye.
All right. This is where I would usually ask Mark if the plans are ready for approval. So let's see what he says here.
I believe he said that they are ready for approval.
Yeah, I think most of it was about the room count.
Mhm.
Recommended. Okay. All right. So,
Yeah, he does.
and then we don't have we're not designed for a garbage grinder, right? So that's the one we'll need. Okay. So do I have a motion to approve the septic plans conditional to a garbage grinder deed restriction and a pre-construction conference?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye.
All right.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And thank you for taking 58 mil early. I
Oh, no
appreciate
problem. Have a good night. All right, so I think that brings us to chair's business, right?
Yes.
So let's start with the Greenwood Homes 40B. I understand the hearing period is closed, as Daryl pointed out, thanks to those from the board that could go the other night. Sorry I couldn't be there. Mr. Murchison, you had a question?
Yeah, I actually had several questions. The first is I just wanted to kind of address an issue that's really completely process related. But the board was asked by the ZBA and by myself, frankly, multiple weeks ago to articulate where the board thought we needed waivers, and I did the same thing, and I sent it all, a week in advance of the meeting. Your arguments, and you have every right to make your arguments as to whether I should get waivers on the project or not, and I have no objection to that. But I do object that I think it was a 9-page letter that was delivered making your arguments, arrived in my email box about an hour into that ZBA meeting. And because the meeting was, or rather the hearing was closed that night, what that meant was I had no ability to review what you were arguing to the ZBA and to comment on it. And I don't think that's good process that in effect, and I'm not saying anyone did it on purpose, but in effect, what happened is it was snuck into the record without my ability to review it or comment on it. And I don't think that's good process. And, obviously there's nothing anyone can do about it at this point, but I wanted to call it out as something I think we can do better in terms of how we treat each other. And anyway, do you have any comment on that, Matt?
I don't have a comment on that, but it is
and
noted.
I would say I agree with you, Bob, and our apologies that did not get to you earlier. We had one confusion about when the hearing was closing. We thought it was closing in the end of February.
I see. Okay.
We had some technical difficulties with computers where we could not get things to move from one place to another.
I
So
see.
our apologies for that.
Apology accepted. I'm appreciative of it. I believe in process, and I think you guys do too. And I don't think that worked as well as it should. The other thing related.
Hold on, I have another comment to add to that, and that is that the board was squeezed for time in general on this and other things because the flow of information was heavily weighted towards the end of the process. So it was difficult on our end.
That's actually not true on Greenwood. Greenwood, the information was available quite early. But anyway, we don't need to debate it unless you want to go further on the topic.
I don't think it's probably a good use of anyone's time.
I agree with you.
We all agree it could have happened more smoothly.
Yeah, thank you. And the next, I don't know if it's a question or just a concern, is that I attended your last couple of meetings, and you folks had long conversations about the waivers I was asking for, and what you were going to say to the ZBA about whether you believe they should approve those waivers or not. And I listened attentively, and I made some comments here and there. In those discussions, and I think you voted on it, I can go back and look at the video, you decided that you were not going to oppose the distance between the well and the septic system, which the requirement was 150 feet. And I don't remember the exact numbers, but 127, 135 or whatever it was. You all voted, I remember, because Rebecca was vehemently opposed to it. And the rest of you voted that you were not going to oppose that request for waiver. And lo and behold, the morning after the ZBA meeting, when I open up your letter, and again, I have no ability to comment because of the timing, it says in the letter that the board was not in favor of the waiver. It says not approve in the letter. And I'm kind of flabbergasted by that, to be honest with you. How does the board vote to not oppose a waiver, and then the letter comes in and opposes the waiver? And I don't think it's going to matter, but I don't think that's very uncomfortable for me.
Can I follow up on that? My
Please.
recollection was that as a board, we specifically discussed the distance of the well to the
Yes.
property line. And that was where we had agreement. Actually, Rebecca did abstain, I believe, from that, but she felt that we needed to maintain all of our well regulations.
Mhm.
And so that was the area that we decided was not going to be the sticking point. We did say that the rest of our regulations regarding wells were going to be, we did not want to see those waived.
I mean, the reason, well, the reason that that's not true is because you all realized, and we had this discussion, that if that waiver was not granted, that the project could not go forward. If that waiver is not granted, it kills the project. And I know that that night you decided not to do that. You decided not to oppose that waiver because it would kill the project. And you knew that wasn't something you wanted to do, or at least 4 of you did. Rebecca disagreed. And I'll go back and review it. And if I'm wrong, Julie, I'll apologize to you for it. But I'm going to go back and review what was said that night, because to me, it was pretty clear. So anyway, again, we don't have to go on, but that's uncomfortable to me if the board votes to not oppose a waiver and then the letter comes in and opposes the waiver. That's not good process. It's not fair to anyone involved, frankly. So anyway, and then the last thing, and I know this is not going to change your behavior. I'm really just telling you in order to put it in the record. But the fact that you have not given me the permit that you voted, the Title V permit that you voted on, I don't know how many weeks ago, a month ago, is illegal. You're in violation of law. And I would again ask that you give me in writing that permit. And, you know, as I said, I don't think it's going to change your behavior, but I do want to get it on the public record that you haven't done what you need to do under Title V. And I know you don't have to deal with this type of situation very often, but I would ask that when you don't know, ask your counsel, because that's your counsel's job, is to tell you how to follow the law. And I, you know, would be appreciative of that. I'm not asking you to take my word for it. I'm asking you to get your counsel's guidance on how to make sure you follow the Title V law. So thank you. That's all I have on Greenwood.
All right.
Can I follow up on that one?
My one comment was going to, I think the one comment I wanted to make on that is that in general, if someone in an open meeting accused me of breaking the law, I don't say anything without talking to my counsel. So I don't want to comment further on that. But I think, Julie, if you had comments on something else, you can go ahead.
My recollection was the previous ZBA hearing, was that the January 16th? I'm sorry, the dates are the one before the one that we just had.
Yeah.
For Greenwood.
Don't worry about the dates. I know what you're talking about.
That one.
Yeah.
Mr. Novak had discussed releasing the Title V permit when the comprehensive permit was decided.
But it's
and I know that
all respect for Rick. Rick is not a Title V lawyer, and it's not his job to tell you. Rick has no involvement legally in the Title V process. The Title V approval or denial is completely the job of the Board of Health, not the ZBA. And so I don't think that's what I don't think that's what Rick said, but in any case, it's not his job. In other words, the law says that you issue the Title V or you deny it, and that's your law. I mean, you know, your right to approve it or deny it, but you have to do it in writing. And you did approve it, and I'm grateful for that. But you've refused to give it to me in writing. And I've heard you tell me why, but it's not a valid reason under the law, because you're saying that you're waiting to see if the wetland line shifts, which it's not because it's fixed for 3 years by law. But you're saying you're waiting for that, and I've forgotten what else you're waiting for. But that's not a Title V issue. You conditioned my Title V permit on things that aren't in Title V. And my point is, you can't do that. And you're withholding the written approval. And again, what we did talk about, Julia, you're right, at the ZBA was, I finally gave up and I said, As a practical matter, it doesn't matter because whether I have the Title V in writing or not, I can't build anything until I get the comprehensive permit. And that's a fact. But that doesn't mean you don't have to follow the law and give me my permit in writing, which Title V clearly says you have to do. And it's not Rick's job to say one way or the other. And I don't think Rick would have told you to withhold the permit.
So I
You
think,
might
I think from here, I mean, as I recall, I don't remember the meeting where we approved it, the date, because they're all.
It was probably a month ago, I think.
That's what I think. I think
yeah.
we have documented minutes approving it. We know it's approved.
And we have the video. It's all.
I think anything beyond that you need, I think we've got to talk to council. So I think we should
Please.
probably.
Yes.
My request to you is to please give me the written permit. And if it takes talking to council for you to do that, that's okay with me. I'm sure. Thank
All
you.
right. I think that's it for Greenwood. We can probably move on to discussing the Farm Road Homes 40B.
So really, we need, the next phase is going to be assessing the information that has recently come in. And we are also going to need input from the peer reviewers on that and their assistance with mounding analyses and nitrogen loading. And it just came in, and so that hasn't been evaluated yet thoroughly.
I don't think we have anything. No, we don't have anything even here because I did see it just came in. Okay.
Yeah, everything was submitted on Sunday, and I have no expectation that you would have reviewed it by now. So I guess
And you noticed that I already told you everything you can also.
And can you mute if you're, oh, there we go. Okay.
So I guess, Matt, my question for the board is, can we talk about kind of, is there anything else you need from me on the farm? In other words, the last time out, I said to you that we were working on the nitrogen. We were going to voluntarily do the nitrogen budget and obviously the groundwater mounding and all of the other reporting, which we did. And we've now delivered that to you as of, Monday business, I guess you'd say. And my question is there anything else that we can provide to you at this time? We understand you may have questions once you've had time to review it. But we just, I want to make sure that is there anything known by you all that you need further from us?
I would say at this time, no.
Great.
But we will let you know as we dive into the details of what we've received.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on Farm Road?
I was just going to add I don't know, I actually don't remember who was at the last hearing that was on I just remember when it was. I think one of the things that was helpful for me to hear in the process too from Mr. Novak was that we can't ask questions directly to the peer reviewer. We need to funnel them through the ZBA. And I think that's just important for any of the board members who weren't present to know that that's the process.
Thanks, Julie.
But I will just add, Julie, because I think it's important. And this was at the request of the peer reviewer, Deshang, our engineer, and Mark, and the peer reviewer all met at town hall and kind of discussed what the peer reviewer and Mark wanted. You'll recall that Mark wanted the soils to be analyzed to determine their soil type. And we went out and we did that, and we did some other testing. That testing has come back, and that's in the information that we gave you most recently. So in other words, we had a meeting with Mark and with a peer reviewer where we were able to get from them what they wanted, and we've now provided that. So we're just obviously in the waiting for you all to take a look mode.
All right, thanks. Okay. Should we move on to Washington Street?
Yes, I think all I would do right now is just note that we've received that information. It's rather rudimentary what we have so far, so not many details to go on yet.
Yeah, and I can update you on that. We expect to have for you, I don't know whether it'll be the end of this week or the very beginning of next week, but we very much want to get you the Title V application for your beginning review either on Friday or Monday, and the stormwater report will go to the ZBA at that same time, which we're much further ahead on Washington than we were on Farm Road. Farm Road, there were some, what's the right way to say this, unavoidable slowness to the engineering process at Farm Road. That's not the case for Washington. So we should have everything for you by Monday or by Tuesday, because the ZBA meeting's Tuesday, and that we wanted to get everything in before the opening hearing for Washington Street, which will be on Tuesday evening. Thank you.
Thanks. So information to come. Any questions from the board on that? Okay. I think that finishes the chair's business. And I think that leaves us with only our next agenda. Is that possible?
Yes, and
I should have spent more time arguing. So, just kidding. So our next meeting is March 6th, because we are off for, we traditionally only have one in February because of school vacation week, which I appreciate. I will not be here. So March 6th is our next meeting. It looks like we have 2 variance hearings scheduled. Do we have anything else on the agenda, Alan, for that meeting?
No, nothing else yet, but I'm assuming you'll have Farm Road homes maybe and Washington Street homes.
Yeah, I think it's safe to assume those will both be on there.
and I think we might need to, potentially have a meeting between now and then, depending on how the Farm Road homes evaluation is going.
Okay. So
And
we could
we'll
schedule,
work that out.
we could try to schedule another meeting if we need to, but I think
And limit it to just that, but
Yeah.
again, we're gonna be squeezed again on time.
yeah, what is the timing on that?
I don't have my calendar open.
I think it's the. I thought it was the 26th.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
Sorry, are you asking about ZBA for Farm Road Homes?
Yeah, yeah,
Correct.
Question. It is whatever that Monday is. I think it's the 26th,
the 26th. Okay.
but it's a Monday night.
So it is likely we'll want to get another meeting in before that at some point. Do we just want to try to book something, or should we wait and take a look at information and then decide?
right. I mean, I would love to do it as soon as we have something to deliberate on, but we don't know when we're going to have that. So it's a little hard to pick a date. Does that make sense, or do we,
Yeah.
I don't know which way
That
to
makes
go
sense.
with this. Yeah.
Okay, well, why don't we see what was received? Why don't we get a chance to review what was received this week? And then,
And maybe we can just check in with ZBA on whether
yeah,
your reviewer has a timeline.
yeah, that sounds fine. And then we can try to schedule something.
Yeah.
Okay. I think regardless, fine to put both on the agenda for the 6th. But then we may potentially have an extra meeting just for that in the meantime. I see there's a hand up from Pete Hebert.
Just Matt, one thing to remind you of is that there is a possibility that the hearing will close on the 26th.
Yeah,
Just FYI.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
we definitely do not know that, but
Yep.
that is a possibility.
And I think that's why we're discussing trying to have another meeting before then, just to be useful. But I think we want to get a chance to look and see what we have before we schedule that.
Fair enough. I just wanted to make you aware of that.
Yeah, I think it is likely that we will have another meeting before then.
And perhaps as a stopgap, whether we want to authorize a non-quorum members of this board to prepare comments if we can't find a meeting date as a backup.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Backup.
Because we could do that now. We could authorize people to prepare comments in the event we can't get a meeting. Shall we do that?
It's okay with me. I've been pulling together comments.
Okay.
So I'm happy to continue with that.
I go on service and then leave the country, so I'm not sure I'm going to be helpful. Okay, so shall we authorize the chair and an additional designee to be named to prepare comments in the event we're unable to meet as a quorum prior to the 26th? Do I have a motion to that effect?
Daryl, I'm willing to help you.
Okay.
May I also help you? May I also have a conversation with you about it?
We can't have three. We can, unless we have a meeting. So that would be, this is just the absolute stopgap if things don't go to plan because of timing issues. And then the preferred is that we hold another meeting with a quorum.
And the meeting would be either the 14th or the 21st.
It wouldn't have to be a Wednesday even. It can be any time of day. I don't think it can be a weekend though, as a public meeting, so.
And Diana,
And new
dependent
policy that
on-
we can't conflict with the select board, so, or really, we're not supposed to conflict with any other boards, but I don't know, Jeff, if it's an emergency.
Yeah, I would just do what you need to do, because it's a timing thing with the ZBA, it sounds like.
Right.
So I would just do what you need to do.
And
And relating to I'm interrupting, but your earlier point earlier in the meeting, just reach out to town council if you want to and let Diane Morris know.
Thanks.
She just keeps track of the spending. That's the only reason. But you can reach out to them.
Okay,
Probably Heather White would be your best.
sounds good. So should we just schedule a meeting or should we authorize somebody?
I
let's
would love to
authorize-
schedule a meeting. My vote would be to have a meeting.
Okay.
I agree, but we don't know when we're going to have information from the peer review, and this is a very significant part of our evaluation of septic issues for this property. So we really do need to have that information first before we can make any decisions.
Right. What about scheduling a meeting and then
And then if it
finding
doesn't work out,
and then move it if the peer reviewer doesn't, I mean, might be able to ask him if he
yeah, I'd
went
be okay with that.
it.
Okay, so we could schedule a meeting with a plan that if we have to, we'll open the meeting and immediately close it if we don't have what info we need.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we could also just cancel the meeting before we don't
Yeah,
have to.
that too. Yeah. Anybody want to throw a date out?
the 21st.
Yeah, I won't be able to attend, but that's okay if we can get a quorum.
Yeah, can we get a quorum then?
I can be there.
I can be there.
Okay, let's do the 21st. And actually, that's far enough out that maybe the peer reviewer, well, it's not that far off, is it?
That's 2
No.
weeks.
Only 2 weeks. Dear. Oh, jeez.
Sorry, everybody, to request this. I know.
No, I think
No, it's the right thing to do.
I'm
it's the right
lamenting
thing to do.
we have something this significant. So,
Daryl,
Okay.
as a practical matter, I think it's really likely the peer reviewer will have a lot for you by the 21st, simply because I know they're going to want to have it in before the 25th, and I don't think they'll give it to you the day before. So I think it's likely.
Nevertheless, the 21st to the 26th is not a lot of time.
No.
But that's it. Thank you for your input. So let's go with the 21st if that's.
Okay, so
All right.
we'll post a meeting on the 21st with that as the sole agenda.
Daryl, would you prefer to do it like a day or two earlier? And hope
Well,
that
no,
the viewer gets information to us by the end of next week.
this is, I think, to pick to make sure that we have a date set aside. And if we can move it up earlier, based on when we get information, then we can do that. Does that make sense, or you
But
think?
we'd have to make sure that the date, we can get a quorum.
Yes, yes.
Can we have should we have an earlier backup date where we know we have a quorum?
Yeah,
This seems-
actually, we can do that. Why not?
Yeah. In which case I would just propose a day or two earlier because I'm not confident that the peer reviewer will have it back and we'll have time to have read it.
I'm available on Tuesdays. Is anyone else available on Tuesdays?
So the 20th.
Yeah, or even Monday.
Monday is a holiday. So you can't-
Oh, right, that's after the holiday. Oh, thank you for reminding me.
So it sounds like the 20th is really the earliest practicable date.
Yeah. I think so.
Okay, so let's plan on the 20th and the 21st. Again, we don't have to post these meetings immediately, so we'll maybe get a sense of which day we'll choose. And is 7 p.m. a reasonable time on both those days?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay, all right.
thank you.
Okay. All right, so that single agenda item for the 20th and 21st, and then we will sort of tentatively plan that, and then we'll post once we get a sense of when we get the information for the peer reviewer. For the 6th meeting, there are 2 variance hearings. We will have Farm Road and Washington Street still on that meeting because we will want an update. If the hearing does close on the 26th, I'd still like to hear an update in open meeting about Farm Road at that point.
Yeah.
Anything else to add to the agenda for the 6th?
Not yet, but there will probably be other items that come in.
Okay. All right. Mr. Hebert, Pete Hebert, I've seen your hand up for a while. Did you have something you wanted to say?
Yes, Pete Hebert, 16 Old Orchard Road. Just had some concerns that I mentioned the other night, and I was told it wasn't the proper forum. So several of my neighbors and I are concerned about the ramifications of the Washington Street project, school impact, traffic impact, wetland impact, water table impact. And I'm just trying to convene with my neighbors about when the appropriate time is to voice our concerns because we have several.
Sure. So I think, at this point, the Board of Health doesn't have the information it needs to have a meaningful discussion on that. I think we're hopeful we'll have that by the meeting on the 6th. So I think it'll be on the agenda for then, in which we're discussing the septic plan.
Right, and so for the Board of Health, the issues are going to be septic.
Yeah.
And the well is most likely going to be a public water supply that is going to be permitted by the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection.
Okay, so March 6th.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
No problem. All right. Anything else? If not, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right. All right. I don't know who that is, but I'm gonna vote aye to adjourn.
Hang on, Matt. Jeff's hand is up.
There we go. Jeff.
Just thanking you guys for a great meeting.
Thanks, Jeff.
Ciao.
You're delaying my adjournment for a thank you. Okay.
You bet.
Always appreciated. All right. Matt Beaver's aye. Yes, we can adjourn. Anyone else?
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye.
All right. Have a good night. I won't see you the week of the 20th, but I will see you on the 6th. I'm sure we'll hear before then.
Safe
Okay.
travels.
Bye.
Bye.
Aye.
Bye.